professor
um, not the scandal itself, but the way the person who is being accused and his supporters have carried on about this. Because if people will remember, this did not just start now. Doubt about Tinubu's ancestry or certificates, his history as a person has been on for more than 20 years now. In fact, it's as old as Nigeria's democracy. The doubt, the questioning, of who he is, what he is, his academic records. And I remember that when the late legal luminary and senior advocate of the masses, Chief Gani Fawemi, equally raised this issue while Tinubu was the governor of Lagos State. They deployed thugs to attack Chief. I almost killed him, destroyed his vehicle, and all of that. Something which demonstrates that the only way that Tinubu has continued, to evade answering these questions clearly has been by attacking those who raise it. And even now that members of his own ruling elite are now the one raising it, you could see the brazen manner. They have continued to defend it and say that it's a non-issue. Meanwhile, it's a big issue. Not because academic records are actually a requirement for performance in office, but actually because when people lie about things like that, or when those kind of things are shrouded in secrecy, it only shows right from there that this person cannot be trusted with the destiny of a nation. Yoruba people will say that the way the Sunday would be directly known from how the Saturday, appears. So that if someone comes with that kind of scandal about them and they cannot answer it clearly, whether they went to a school and whether the certificate they are presenting actually comes from that school, and the answers to that have to be gotten, through expensive, legal challenge in the U.S. courts and all of that, and all of the rigmarole, to try and ensure that that itself does not come to the Nigerian court here, the Supreme Court. All of that simply just shows that we are in trouble in this country. Many Nigerians abroad, including those who are planning to travel abroad, have talked about how this has affected the image of the country and affects, you know, their own image, when they present themselves abroad or at embassy. So, in that sense, this is not an issue, that's just restricted to an individual. It affects everybody. But most importantly, also is what I said, which is that it shows that this is not someone, that can be trusted, with the destiny of a nation. And it's already clear, even from the way he has carried on with governance since he came in, without regard for people, for what they say and their opinion. You continue to drive through policies that continues to affect the lives of the people, like subsidy remover. And when people say this is painful, this ought, you say that there's nothing you can do, but they have to accept it that way. We can't continue to have a leadership that operates in this way, and we expect that Nigeria can move forward. And that is why it is important at this stage, regardless of which political divide anybody find themselves, this is something that everybody has to condemn. Which, I mean, and by saying that if your academic record as the president of this country is in doubt, the best thing is for you to step aside, because already that shows that you cannot be trusted with the destiny of it.
The legal battles involving Tinubu's background and academic records continue, with hearings scheduled in the United States. These cases have attracted significant attention both in Nigeria and abroad, as they may impact the presidential election and raise questions about transparency and credibility in Nigerian politics. Our guest today is a writer and an investigative journalist who is currently living in exile under asylum protection as a result of his investigative work. Here is David Ndaye. It's a pleasure to have you on Sahara TV, David.
Thank you for having me.
David, for the sake of clarity and to understand the context, can you give us a brief overview of President Bola Tinubu's academic record and how it has been a subject of controversy?
Well, so this goes back, I think, all the way to 1999 when he first ran for governor in Lagos State, and at the time he claimed to have attended the University of Chicago, which was determined to be false because the University of Chicago was contacted and they immediately disclaimed him. They said they don't know anything to do with him. So he then changed his story and claimed to have actually attended Chicago State University. And then he claimed that the person who supposedly filled his INEC form, Senator Tokunbo Afikuyomi, made a mistake, which, I mean, I think to anyone with a functioning pair of eyes and a brain in their head is a very sort of it's a silly argument. But unfortunately, Gani Fahimi, who was a lawyer who was actually pursuing this case at the time, wasn't really able to do much because Tinubu already had immunity as a sitting governor. So he somehow just managed to sidestep this. Obviously, had the media on his side because he's very generous with editors in Nigeria. And for 8 years, he managed to pretty much get away with it. In 2008, after he had left office as governor and Babatunde Fashola had taken over, I think that was the first time there was an attempt in Nigerian media to go into his past at all. Because up until that point, Nigerian media had only sort of obsequiously reported what he told them about his past. So the narrative that he was this hero of Nadeko who fought Abacha, and nobody had really bothered to dig into his past beyond that accepted narrative. I think 2008 was the first time any Nigerian media platform ever made any attempt at doing that. It was Sahara Reporters, funny enough. But I guess at the time it wasn't really that important because he wasn't in office and he wasn't running for office. So this issue, I think, resurfaced in it's resurfaced multiple times, but it didn't really become that much of a front burner issue until last year after he decided to run for president. Now, shortly after I published the story the first story about him, which I published last year in July, the story titled "From Drug Lords to Presidential Candidates," Bola Ahmed Tinubu. A public interest lawyer in Abuja by the name of Mike Enahoreba, who read my story, then decided that he wanted to do some digging of his own. Right. So acting of his own volition, acting independently, using his own resources, he decided to carry out a sort of mini investigation in the city of Chicago. And by the way, this is based on his own accounts of events. This is what he told me. So he reached out to a private investigator in Chicago by the name of Robert Hanrahan Investigation, and also to a law firm in Chicago called Leahy, Eisenberg, and Frankel. And the purpose of doing that was to determine whether the educational history, which Bola Ahmed Tinubu had claimed, i.e., that he supposedly attended Chicago State University, was in fact true. Because it's almost unheard of that someone would make that kind of mistake where they would say they attended, I attended Unilag, and later on Unilag says no, he now said, oh no, actually it was LASU. They pretty much did the same thing. So he claims to have attended the University of Chicago, and then afterwards said, oh no, it was Chicago State University. I've never heard of anyone making such a mistake before. And so barrister Mike Enahoreba decided to do his own investigation into this, and using that law firm, he was able to get a subpoena issued to Chicago State University, to Southwest College, also known as Richard Daley College, which Tinubu also claims to have attended, as well as to the places he claimed to have worked at, such as Deloitte and Anderson Tax. And the response to these subpoenas made up the basis for the story that I published in November, because I was able to get hold of these things exclusively from him. And the story was titled "Has Bola Ahmed Tinubu Committed Perjury? The Evidence Says Yes." And what was outlined in that story basically was that every single part of the educational history narrative that Bola Tinubu had claimed for 20-something years was entirely false. So, for example, the person who supposedly was on file at Chicago State University, the person known as Bola A. Tinubu on file at Chicago State University, the records clearly showed, bear in mind these records were obtained under subpoena, the records clearly showed that the gender of this person was F. female. Right? To the best of our knowledge, the person we know today as Bola Ahmed Tinubu was born a man, has always been a man. So that can only mean that if the person on file at Chicago State University was female, and this person who claims to be that person is male, then that means identity fraud has taken place. So that was the most important thing. Some other things that were established were that the supposed Chicago State University certificate, which is submitted to INEC, was not in fact issued by Chicago State University, that this was a certificate that was issued from that was obtained from a cheap online forgery service called diplomamakers.com. And we were actually able to trace this forensically, showing the path from A to B, that this certificate is based on this template from this website. It even has the same grammatical errors on it, the same layout, that sort of thing. So, and this issue was actually taken to court in November 2022. We actually took this to court, went to the Federal High Court in Abuja, and in the typical manner of the Nigerian judiciary, they disgraced themselves. So what simply happened was that the case was not assigned to a judge. Every single judge ran away from it. Nobody took on the case. So it basically timed out. So it was kind of funny how during the rulings delivered at the PEPT, Justice Samani claimed that these issues were pre-election issues, because these issues were in fact raised before the election, and the judiciary did its absolute level best to frustrate the hearing of this case, to make sure that the case wasn't heard. So now that the PDP candidate Atiku Abubakar has decided to take this to the front burner, it has become an issue, basically. So what Atiku is currently doing in court in Chicago is basically going through the exact same legal process that Mike and Nahureba already went through over a year ago. And the simple reason for that, and for me, the nonsensical reason for that is under Nigerian law, if those records are obtained directly by a participant in the ongoing case, i.e. Atiku, for whatever reason, they have more probate value to the court than when they were obtained using the exact same process by somebody who is not directly involved in the case. So even though we already know what those documents are going to say, because we already have them, and we had them for more than a year, what the Nigerian court system is basically going to say that as long as these documents are not issued directly to the court in response to this matter, even though they were also obtained under legal subpoena, blah, 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 we're not going to recognize them.
Yeah,
Which to me is a very nonsensical thing, but that's just how the Nigerian court system works, unfortunately.
I kind of get that, and I recently read one of your tweet just yesterday. I mean, which was quite a cutting remark on Nigeria's judicial legal system. You actually was quoted as saying that the only reason Atiku is in court is because Nigeria's legal system is operated and overseen by some of the worst blockheads in the northern hemisphere. You went on to describe them as blockheads who wear hot, heavy colonial wigs, and they ascribe lower value to the same documents that have been gotten under the same legal process. You went as far as describing them as wig-wearing obotes. And the Nigerian justice system is a rotten pile of arbitrary nonsense. Some of your critics are saying these are brutal remarks and a serious indictment on Nigeria's legal system. Your reaction to this?
Well, I mean, I'm not sure how many Nigerian lawyers or Nigerian judges actually benchmark the Nigerian justice system to the justice systems in supposedly the countries that even inspired our own legal system, such as the British legal system or the American legal system. Because if you are familiar with those legal systems, a principle which is taken very seriously is the principle of there's a specific term for it, but in my own words, I'll describe it as minimization of time wasting. Basically, the Nigerian judicial system is very heavy on unnecessary process that doesn't benefit, that doesn't add to the substance of anything. It's process for the sake of process, complication for the sake of itself. It doesn't add or take away anything. It's just meaningless rigmarole. That's what the Nigerian judicial system is chock full of. And unfortunately, this is what leads to that infamous thing we know as justice by technicality. Because when you have 1,001 processes that do not need to be there, and they're just processes for the sake of processes, there's always the possibility that the more processes there are, the more possibility there is that there's going to be some failure of adherence in one place or the other. And once there's one minor failure of adherence in one place or the other, then you can use then the whole case is struck out on technicality instead of on its merit. We've seen an example of this recently when during the appeal court judgment at the PEPT, regarding the issue of Tinubu's undisclosed citizenship, which, by the way, is a very clear instance of perjury because on his INEC EC9 declaration form, he was asked, have you obtained citizenship of another country? Tick yes or tick no. He ticked no under oath. And then here is evidence, i.e. the Guinean passport that belongs to him, showing very clearly that he lied. He, in fact, has obtained another citizenship. And instead of ruling based on the merit of that issue, the court said, oh, well, the way this thing was introduced, the way this evidence was introduced into the courts didn't meet so and so standard, therefore it's struck out. So in other words, justice has not been served at all. You've paid the technicality has received higher probate value than the actual merit of the case. And this is the hallmark of the Nigerian judicial system. If that were to have happened in the UK or in the US, or maybe that's even too far. Let's even use countries we can even benchmark ourselves with, like Brazil, South Africa, Pakistan, Indonesia, right? If such a thing were to have happened in such countries, I think you'll find that the judges would have said, well, whether or not there is a technical issue here, minor technical issue here or not, the merit far outweighs that minor technical issue. And by the way, that is very much a principle in jurisprudence, pretty much everywhere in the world, that where there are potential, there are minor technical issues that could potentially be used to create issues within a case, the judge actually has it's at the discretion of the judge to assign priority to the merits of the case over the technicality, right? The judges actually have that power. But in the Nigerian justice system, the judges will never exercise that power. All they will rather say is the technicality comes first. Everything is about process and procedure and ceremony, right? It's always about the form, never about the substance.
That's quite absurd. It's really absurd. David, we know you've done quite an extensive research on Tinubu's academic background. And one of the questions we would like to point out, pushed across to you is what are your sources? What kind of evidences or sources have you relied upon when you were investigating these matters? And how credible are these sources? And what steps have been taken by you to verify the information, considering the fact that we've got so many documents flying around, records that are flying around, on the social media spaces, and some of these records are not verifiable.
So I think anyone who has actually read my work and is actually familiar with my work actually wouldn't be asking that question, because it's very clear where my sources are. So, for example, with regard to this issue, is the educational background of the president. It was very clear that these documents that form the basis of the story that I published were legal documents which are obtained using so and so process. All of this was enumerated in the story, and that this is where I obtained these documents from. That there was a suit filed in the FCT High Court, and once the suit was filed, these documents became issued. They became public record basically, and I was able to get hold of them from. In fact, on the documents, which I always include a link in my stories, so because I usually upload them to my Scribd account in like PDF format, anyone can see and download it. You could even see the stamp of the FCT High Court with the date and everything in signature. So there's no question of, which backyard route did I use to obtain? There's no backyard route, right? If I'm not willing to, if I'm not 100% sure about the veracity of a document, I'm not going to publish it or publish a story based on it, right? That goes against the rules of the profession. You only put out, you're only supposed to put out what you can stand by, what you can prove is true. So That's what I do. It's really that simple. So there's no it's not as if there was one I met in a dark alley with some guy in some street in Chicago who gave me documents in a folder. No, it wasn't like that. These documents are publicly available documents from a court.
Now get your perspective on this as well. Can you discuss notable controversies or scandals surrounding President Tinubu's legal history, especially in the United States of America?
So, okay, I guess I should back up a bit here because I guess this ties into the other story,
Exactly,
which I published. So the focus of that story was on the criminal background of the supposed Nigerian president, specifically his involvement in heroin trafficking between the 80s and the early 90s in Chicago, which is also on public record in the US, and which is available. I mean, if you walk into the Northern District of Illinois Eastern Division Courthouse and you pay the $35 filing fee, you get the document. It's publicly available. Now, I think that is very well known. The contents of that document have been done to death. So I don't think I need to summarize that again. I guess the new inform or the relatively new information is, by the way, all of this is going to be contained in a book which I'm publishing next year. So short after that story was published, after the second story was published, the documentary based on the first story was also published. We decided to go a step further, and by we, I mean myself and a fellow called Aaron Greenspan, who runs a website called plainsight.org. Plainsight is an American website which serves as a repository for publicly available court documents. So basically, any legal, any documents that is any document that comes from a court process in the US, which is supposed to be on a public record, be it criminal or civil, it's basically hosted on Plainsight because the purpose of Plainsight, as implied by the name, is to put everything in plain sight, right? So instead of people having to go to some obscure courthouse to pay a filing fee or go to the National Archives and request records and pay filing fees and whatnot, Plainsight does all that work. It's like an NGO kind of thing. It's NGO funded, and it puts all of this out and makes it publicly available for free. So during this time, he became aware that the 1993 federal investigation involving Tinubu was receiving a lot of traffic on Plainsight, and this was largely due to my involvement in the issue. So he reached out to me, and we struck up a sort of informal relationship. So sometime in October last year, he was the one who actually told me that, you know, as against just looking for existing court files that may or may not exist, there are other ways to actually access information that using the FOIA framework. Now, I've used FOIAs before. I've sent FOIAs to the American SEC, to University of Oxford in the UK. I've used FOIAs extensively, but I had never sent an FOIA to the FBI before, because I didn't believe the FBI would even. I expect such institutions to be very arrogant in the way they deal with the public, based on my experience of trying to reach out to the DEA. So he was one who actually kind of educated me that, yes, the FBI probably will decline the FOIA, but there's a secondary process after that to actually get hold of this information. You can actually take the FBI to court. You can actually carry out litigation. So that process began in October 2022. We sent the initial FOIA. When the response came, the initial response was, due to privacy concerns, we're not going to give this information. It's a private citizen, blah, 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 blah. We appealed. The second response was, they have identified 70,107 pages of relevant information, blah, 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 blah. However, they are still not going to give us this information based on privacy considerations, which I consider to be a fatuous argument, because at this point, this person was like one of the front runners for the president of Africa's largest country. So how can you say that this is private, there are privacy concerns here? This person is no longer a private individual. He's putting himself up for elective office. So anyway, after the election, which he, allegedly won, at that point, he could no longer claim that this is a private individual. So privacy concerns clearly do not apply. So at that point, that was when we made the decision to take this to court. So in addition to just the FBI, so in total, 6 U.S. government agencies were copied into this suit. So it was the FBI, it was the CIA, Central Intelligence Agency, it was the DEA, that's the Drug Enforcement Administration, it was the IRS, that's the Internal Revenue Service, and it was the U.S. attorneys and the State Department. So 6 institutions in total. And the purpose of the lawsuit, which by the way is publicly available, all these court files and they're on plainsight.org. So the purpose of that lawsuit was to compel the court to get the court to compel these agencies to reveal the contents of the files that they hold on the person we know as Bola Ahmed Tinubu, because we know for a fact that they definitely do in fact hold files on him. Anyone who has ever been involved in a U.S. federal investigation will definitely have an FBI file on him. And obviously that they had already told us that they identified 70,107 pages of relevant information. So we knew for a fact this file exists. So the initial response to the suit, which I think the response was coordinated by the EOUSA, that's the Executive Office of U.S. Attorneys. The initial response, which came, I think, in July, was it June or July? I think it might have been June. The response said something about this potentially not being actionable until 2026. So we have been going back and forth. Aaron officially is the one who filed the lawsuit. He's the one whose name appears on the lawsuit. I was kind of in the background because I'm not a U.S. citizen. I'm not a U.S. resident. However, I was the one paying all the filing fees. So I was the one funding the lawsuit, basically. What helped was that we were also able to get a lawyer who worked pro bono, because otherwise we'd have had to pay $30,000-$40,000, which I really don't have. So that was good. So we weren't really thinking we were going to get that information until much, much, much later. I mean, they had mentioned 2026, you know. And then I remember, I can't forget, it was September 8th, right? It was a Friday, and I just come out of the shower. I think it was actually September 9th. It was very early Saturday morning, like 1 a.m. I just come out of the shower, and I saw a message on my signal, and it was from Aaron. And he said, "I have very good news." And I said, "Yeah, I'm listening." And then he sends me a document, and I open it, and it's basically all 6 agencies saying, "We're going to give you all the information that you requested, all of it." And I'm like,
wow.
Oh, I didn't see that coming. Okay, why the sudden about face? And he says, "Well, I don't know, but it clearly looks as if the U.S. government is no longer interested in protecting this person." So yeah, so I mean, the document was dated September 11th, so it was to be filed officially on the following Monday. So I had to sort of keep my mouth shut for the whole weekend, which was hard, but I managed to do it, and it was filed officially on Monday. So, and then I shared obviously the document and the link with my colleagues in the media, and in the entirety of the Nigerian media, of all the mainstream editors I can think of, it was just Samuel Ogundipe of People's Gazette who actually picked up the story. So Nigerian media actually enforced a total blackout. The most of Nigerian media enforced a total blackout of the story, which I guess that tells a story on it. So anyway, long story short, okay, but something else I forgot to mention was that we in the middle of all of this, we had actually filed a request to narrow down the search parameters, because we didn't want 70,000 pages of material to troll.
That would be too much.
Yeah, to troll through. I don't even have the manpower to process 70,000 pages of information.
So that was why it was pruned down to 2,500 pages of documents.
Yeah. So we sent a request to the FBI saying they should trim down the search parameters to just individuals and entities linked to Bola Tinubu and Kafaru Tinubu, who he claimed was the owner of the money that was seized from his accounts in 1992. So that's how come it was trimmed down from 70,000 plus pages to 2,500 pages. So the word from the FBI was that from October they're going to start releasing these documents at the rate of 500 pages per month. So it's going to take 5 months basically to get through the 2,500 pages. And by the way, that's just the FBI, because I think that has also been missed in all of this, that the 2,500 pages everyone is going on about are just the FBI. So the the State Departments, the IRS, and the DEA also have files, and they're also going to release them. I think either DEA or the IRS said they're going to release theirs at the rate of 300 pages a month. So there's a lot of material which is going to start emerging from October of next month. So I guess we wait and see.
We'll wait. That's now, let me take you back a bit, David, and I'm going to crave your indulgence with in regard to this. We're still on Tinubu's academic record. And what's on the mind of most Nigerians? How are we sure that Tinubu's documents that will be released by Chicago State University will not be heavily doctored like the 2023 presidential election results? I mean, considering the fact that as some Nigerians claim, the university itself is tainted with corruption and had to be indicted in some instances, and they paid heavily for that. So, what's your reaction to this, please?
So yes, the University of the Chicago State University is in fact significantly tainted with corruption, and this is a matter of public record. It actually is. However, for them to doctor such documents, first of all, that would be a serious federal crime in the US. Secondly, I think people forget that we have already obtained these documents under subpoena. So if the documents they release differ in any way to the documents which they released last year under another subpoena from the same court, then they have a whole criminal issue on their hands, because when you respond to a subpoena asking for this document and you submit a document, and you respond to another subpoena asking for the same document and you submit a different document, that means that one of those documents you submitted was false, and that is perjury. Lying on that oath is one of the most serious offenses you can commit in the US. Right? That you can spend your life in prison for doing that, or at least you do a very, really long stretch in prison for doing that. So I guess we actually have Mike Enahureba to thank for this, because he has essentially ensured that regardless of whatever game Chicago State University might want to play, they have basically shot themselves in the foot. Because under those circumstances, can the documents that they released to Atiku Abubakar be different to the documents that they released to Leahy, Eisenberg, and Franco? They have to be the same, otherwise they have committed perjury. Right? And this is not the Nigerian legal system. There's no justice for money. To find a technicality somewhere to get you off. So good luck to them.
Now, I know that they've also strived as much as possible to ensure that these documents are not released, and we've had instances, in fact, and we've also had some of their supporters actually doing a pushback. For example, Bayo Ononuga, a former media aide to the president, has criticized the supporters of Atiku Abubakar and PTOB over their stance on the president's certificate, saying that they're wasting their time and chasing shadows by controverting Tinubu's attendance at the Chicago State University. What's your reaction to this?
I mean, if that was the case, then Bayo Ononuga would be the last person to be concerned by it. Why is he? I mean, there's a term in English where we say you doth protest very, very loudly, right? You're complaining too much, right? You're complaining more than the bereaved. So if the supporters of Tinubu and Atiku are wasting their time, let them waste their time. How is it your concern? In fact, it's in your interest politically for them to waste their time. So why are you coming out to tell them that they're wasting their time and they should stop doing it? Why? It should be in your interest for them to continue. If they're running down a blind alley and they're chasing, they're on a wild goose chase, it's in your interest to leave them to carry out the wild goose chase. Why are you disturbed by it? You should be happy that they're on their wild goose chase. So leave them to carry out the wild goose chase. What it concern you?
That's quite interesting. David, let's look at the public perception and the implications. Let me start by getting your view on this. Considering the implications that this might, the controversy that has been generated by this, this Tinubu saga, what impact, if any, have this controversy had on the public perception of President Tinubu and his governance in Nigeria? And as well, also chip in this, how might these controversies affect Nigeria's international relationship, especially particularly with the United States?
So first of all, I'm not sure these have had any impact on the perception of Tinubu in Nigeria, because I think the perception already was that Tinubu is a criminal. So this has not significantly damaged his perception, because there was nothing to be damaged in the first place. It was already at zero. So it's pretty much what people expected. However, in the international space, it absolutely is having an effect, and is going to have an even more significant effect by the time we're through with all of this, because it's one thing for such scandals to happen in country, right? So if the scandal is that he claims to have attended the University of Benin, he didn't actually attend the University of Benin, even if that gets into the international media, it's like, oh yeah, it's Africans and African issues, whatever. But this is an issue that is rooted in the US, right? That's where the problem is, right? Because so Buhari had a similar issue where to date, as we speak, Buhari has never actually proven that he completed his secondary school, right? And they also submitted forged documents, and somehow they also got away with it. I think because Nigerians have a very short memory. Nigerians have forgotten that Buhari presented a forged WAEC certificate to INEC, where the name on the certificate was Mohammed Buhari, even though his name is Muhammadu Buhari, and the passport photo was of him at his old age. Nigerians have forgotten all of that. But the thing is, you can get away with that because it's WAEC. It's a West African thing, it's a Nigerian thing. Nobody really cares. But when you are forging a Chicago State University certificate, we are bringing the US into it, where you have an FBI file with a total of 70,107 pages. The US has been brought into it. In fact, I was reliably informed that at the last UN General Assembly, after so much noise that they made about Tinubu supposedly having an exclusive sideline meeting with Joe Biden, the US president, the reason that meeting did not eventually happen was because Joe Biden was briefed that there is some information which is about to emerge about this guy, and if you allow yourself to be pictured with him or to posture yourself in any way that looks like you are aligning yourself with him, your political enemies are going to have you for lunch, right? And it's going to affect your re-election chances. And that's how come that meeting, which they spent weeks crowing about, didn't come close to happening. In fact, it was so bad that I think it was on a Wednesday, either Tuesday or Wednesday during the UN General Assembly, that Tinubu and Biden were in the same building at the same time. I think Biden had given a speech, and his aides were trying desperately to book some kind of appointment or meeting with Biden, and Biden's people knocked them back. They don't want to be seen within a country mile of the guy now. It's like the guy has feces rubbed all over his body now. Nobody wants to be seen with him. Nobody wants to be near him. Both in the US, in the international space in general, his brand is toxic now, and it's only going to get worse. So, I mean, at the end of the day, he only has himself to blame for all of this. I think I said it long before the election that if he wasn't such a hubristic person who genuinely believes that everybody else is stupid except him, he would never have run for election in the first place. He would have just sat down in Bodilon and been, a kingmaker the way he had been for years, and he would have been okay with that role. But I mean, he decided to bring it. He decided to take it here. He decided to put himself out into the public space. So whatever happens to him now, it is not doing.
Those are serious diplomatic repercussions. Let me also get your view on this. What implication do these allegations and legal travails, if proven true, have for Nigeria's political landscape and public interest in leadership?
It's not a matter of if proven true. They've been proven true since last year. But again, the Nigerian legal system just means that we have to go through the same rigmarole all over again. But anyway, the repercussions, if any, that will be had in the Nigerian justice system, I think will depend on what the reaction is in Nigeria. Because there's also a possibility that even if files come out stating that Tinubu eats babies, right? That by the time this information gets to Nigeria, to the Nigerian press, Nigerian judicial system, Nigerian law enforcement, everybody just look at it and say, yeah, so what? He's not the first to do it. There's a distinct possibility that could happen. that Nigeria, like the Nigerian system will shrug and say, okay, yes, okay, yeah, you were trying to prove that he's a criminal. Okay, you've proven it. And so what? What's going to happen? There's a possibility Nigeria will react that way. And if Nigeria reacts that way, then I think at that point, we will then know that any chance of Nigeria ever achieving any kind of global significance or greatness or anything, I think we'll know from that point that that's a lost cause, right? That Nigeria has no intention of ever becoming an actual country. And if that is the case, then whatever happens afterwards, including the people who call for succession and everything, nobody will tell them anything, because at that point, they will be on the right side of history. However, if the reaction is that the Nigerian system, even, I don't want to say purges itself because that's a strong term, but if the Nigerian system at the very least recognizes that the position of this person is now untenable, right? At the very least, even if all the other people who are criminals like him remain in place, but only he is taken out, at the very least, that would be a very powerful signal that possibly for the first time in Nigeria's post-colonial history, there is proof now that bad behavior or criminal behavior has consequences, has actual consequences. That would be a very powerful signal. On its own, that would do a lot for the potential future of Nigeria. So again, it's up to the Nigerian system to treat itself seriously, like it has a future, or to do what it has always done. So, good luck. Good luck to all of us.
Now, David, are there ongoing investigations or legal proceedings that are related to these issues and that Nigerians should keep an eye on? And what are the potential future developments as far as this story is concerned?
Well, I guess, we're having this conversation on a Wednesday, 2 days' time. Well, today, the lawyers for Atiku are supposed to be filing in their counter motion in court. Potentially from Friday, it's not on Friday, but from Friday, potentially, we should be expecting a ruling from Judge Nancy Maldonado. So I guess what Nigeria should be looking out for is whether this judge, because there are rumors that lobbyists have been employed, they're reaching out to this judge. Obviously, there's no way of independently verifying.
How credible are those rumors? Let's get your view on that. Are they really credible?
Yeah, so there's no way to independently verify that information. It's possible that has been the case. It's also possible that that's just someone's strategy for putting pressure on the judge. Nobody really knows, right? It's almost impossible to independently verify these things. However, what I think people should be on the lookout for is what the contents of the judgment are. And what I mean by that is the previous judge who gave a very definite judgment didn't just give a judgment saying these documents should be released and officials from CSU should have a deposition. This judge also cited extensive case law. It was a comprehensive judgment. So how the US system works is that if any part of that judgment is going to be overturned, the judge who's overturning it also has to provide basically case law precedents and has to provide compelling reason, compelling arguments as to why that should be overturned. So it's not like in Nigeria where a judge can just wake up on the wrong side of the bed and just say, 2 + 2 is 9, and that's it. That's the decision of the court, full stop. You can't do anything about it. In the US, you have to show working. So what I guess people should be on the lookout for is if this judge upholds the ruling, which I think is the right thing to do, or if she finds a way to reduce the severity of the ruling. So if, for example, she says that the document should be released, but CSU officials are not required to come in and do a deposition. I think if that's the case, then Nigeria should be very worried, because it will mean that this will then need to see what argument was used to nullify the deposition. What argument was used to overrule the junior judge who gave a comprehensive decision? Because again, I've read that judgment, a comprehensive judgment. So, to the best of my knowledge, there is no compelling reason or compelling argument why both the deposition and the release of the document should not happen. In fact, I think deposition is just as important as the release of the document. Because what the purpose of the deposition is for the Chicago State University officials to appear in court and swear under oath that this and this and this is accurate, that this is what a Chicago State University certificate from 1979 actually looks like, that so and so the person that we claim signed on the certificate, Elnora Daniel, actually signed on it, even though it was like 11 years before she even joined the institution, so it's mathematically impossible. Like, that deposition is basically, in my opinion, is what is actually going to nail everybody, right? Even more than the certificate. So if the judge, for whatever reason, then nullifies that deposition, then I think we'll have a confirmation that those rumors were in fact true. That's what we should keeping our eyes out for.
All right, David, our time is almost up, but let me just ask this question, and I appreciate if you could do this in under 30 seconds. In your view, what are the key takeaways of your investigation into President Tinubu's academic records and his legal travels?
So the key facts of the matter, as I think everyone knows, Bola Tinubu was a heroin trafficker. He was involved in the heroin trafficking operation in the US, in Chicago, and he has lied extensively about his background. The claim that he attended first University of Chicago, then Chicago State University, when he changed his story afterwards. The claim that he worked at Deloitte, which was found to be categorically not true because Deloitte was subpoenaed, and they said they don't know this person. And claim that he worked at Anderson Tax. They claim that he made his money from salary and bonus payments at Deloitte as a junior accountant, and he made $1.8 million as a junior accountant. All these are false. So those are the main facts, the main
takeaways, so
the
to say.
facts of the case.
All right.
However, I think in a wider context, the contextual takeaway for Nigeria is that there is an entire generation of people who are in and around power in Nigeria now who have experienced no scrutiny whatsoever. Their backstories have never been examined to be true. And it's not just Tinubu. I did a story this year where I took a look at Hadi Sirika, the immediate past Minister of Aviation, whom everybody said is a pilot, Captain Hadi Sirika. And I dug 1 inch deep into his background, and it became increasingly clear that one of the so-called flight training schools he claims to have attended doesn't exist. The Petroleum Helicopters Institute, there is no such place. It doesn't exist. Somehow this person, who has never proven that he has actually flown any kind of aircraft before, who supposedly quit a career as a pilot at the ripe old age of 39 to go into politics. This person was presented as a sort of industry insider, as someone with domain knowledge, and this person became aviation minister and has not actually proven that he's actually a pilot. So there's an entire generation of people in and around leadership in Nigeria who have experienced no scrutiny whatsoever. The security agencies, who I'm sure have all of this information, they choose to use that information to bargain, right? To curry favors, to trade, basically, to blackmail people, to get what they want out of people. The media is not doing its job either, because the media is just content to just regurgitate whatever they are told by these same people in power who often pay them off. The citizenry are also very content to believe everything that they are told. So at every level, there's a failure of the democratic system. So that's what I think the actual takeaway should be, that the Nigerian system is so porous that a drug dealer, like a street level drug dealer, was able to rise all the way up to president and grand commander in chief of the armed forces. That's what I think people should be extremely worried about. Not so much the fact of Tinubu being a criminal, but how high he was able to rise as a criminal without any scrutiny whatsoever.
David Unai, thank you.
University have come out to say that they all know that Tinubu forged his Chicago State University certificate. Also, another report has revealed that investors are now backing out from investing in Nigeria because they are scared of being duped, because they are scared of contract or the agreement that are going to go into, that it's going to be forged. So many investors are already backing out of investing in Nigeria. Before we delve into details on this, please do well to like this video and please do well to subscribe to this channel so you get updates whenever we post a new video. See the way this particular newspaper reported what this particular professor said. It said, breaking news. We all know that Tinubu forged his diploma certificate. John Hopkins University professor Professor Steve Hanke chides Bola Tinubu. So this is what this particular professor is saying. He's saying that it is not actually news, that they already know that Tinubu forged his certificate, and this is actually one of the things that Nigerians have been kicking against it happening. Because just imagine that the outside world, everyone is already saying that we all know that your president forged his certificate, and now this actually now depends on the Supreme Court to either do the right thing or expose what is actually going on in Nigeria's judiciary to the outside world. Because if CSU can swear under oath that the certificate is actually not from them, what else is left? What is the Supreme Court still trying to clear when the school itself said the certificate is not from them? That's actually an obvious show of forgery. And this particular professor here has come out to say that it is something they all already know before time, that Tinubu forged his certificate, and people have been reacting to this on X. This person here said, we that are here in Nigeria already know too, just that the judiciary has turned themselves to demigods, and this is what I just pointed out too, that it depends on the judiciary to do the right thing so that we can regain our image in the outside world. Just imagine that the judiciary will at the end of the day not do the right thing. It will point out to the outside world, it will send a strong message to the outside world that Nigeria and Nigerians are just playing. Because this is something that is so obvious that according to the law, he is meant to be disqualified for certificate forgery. Also reacting to this, another person here said, what an embarrassing moment for Tinubu, very shameful. Another person here said, wow, really? I thought it was only us that knew. It cannot be only us because it's already everywhere in the news, even international media, that CSU under oath said that the certificate that Tinubu submitted to INEC is not from them. And just imagine the image this is creating, that this particular professor is coming out now to say they all already know that Tinubu forged his Chicago State University certificate. Another person here said, if the Supreme Court does not disqualify Tinubu, then we don't have a country anymore. Another person here reacted and said, the world knows the truth. No hiding place for the career criminal and certified certificate forger. This person here said, I am waiting for the Judases to tell us the latest this time. Maybe we will still hear that Tinubu didn't intentionally forge the CSU certificate. Maybe that's what they are going to do at the end of the day, just like this person said, because that's actually what the PEP's justices said in the case of forfeiture. They said his bank account committed the crime, not Tinubu. So we don't know how they will want to use technicality to come out of this, because it is already clear to everyone. It is already clear to the whole world. And for everyone to be talking about one person this way, it shows that even the people did not actually vote for this person. Another person here said, international embarrassment. What baffles me is that I see educated Nigerians supporting this man. This person here reacted and said, even Joe Biden and other Western leaders are aware of all this. CSU and FBI have revealed the real identity of that man in Aso Rock. The world knows Tinubu didn't go to any school. Another person here reacted and said, but the first Nigerian INEC elected president with record of no secondary school, presidential background, money laundering, drug trafficking, certificate forgery, identity theft, criminal case with FBI, and the list goes on and on. And this is actually very pathetic that one person has all of this record and you still fought your way to become the president of the largest African nation. And this is really, really pathetic. Another person here reacted and said, good morning, Nigeria. Certificate forger cannot be our president. A very good day to remind Adekunle Tinubu that resigning is the first step of being responsible for once in his entire life. Facts and truth. Bola Ahmed Tinubu submitted a diploma certificate of Chicago State University (CSU) to INEC as his academic credential to contest in the Nigerians 2023 presidential election. He represented the certificate at the Presidential Election Petition Court. CSU confirmed under oath that he never issued the certificate to Mr. Tinubu nor can verify it. In effect, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu knowingly forged a CSU diploma certificate and submitted it to INEC and to the Presidential Appeal Court under oath that it was issued to him by CSU. Another person here said, of course we know. The whole world knows, and even Supreme Court judges knows too. That's why he will be sacked. Another person here reacted and said, we all know, but who will prove beyond every reasonable doubt to our judiciary a corrupt system needs an antivirus or should utilize the formatting option? Another person here reacted saying, so finally this man has made over 200 million Nigerians look like a certificate forger now. Oh my goodness. If the Supreme Court does not disqualify Tinubu, then we don't have a country anymore. The world knows the truth. No hiding place for the career criminal and certified certificate forger. And that's it. The whole world now knows the truth. And there is nothing to hide again. Because if this particular professor can come out to say this, how about other world leaders? Everyone already knows about this. And it now depends on the Supreme Court, like we said, to do the right thing. The most annoying part of it is seeing that people with real and genuine certificates defending what they really know is forged. This life no balance at all, and it is not correct. Why will you be supporting this when it is already so obvious that indeed his certificate was forged? If the school can come out to say that they did not issue the certificate to you, is nothing but the truth, because they are the ones that issue certificates over time and they know the ones that came from them and the ones that did not come from them. Another person here said, if Supreme Court do otherwise on this matter, then they should be held responsible for any criminal acts going forward in this country. You won't be surprised in a few years to come, some of this judiciary will now come out and be claiming saints. If Atiku had done his part back then when he was the vice president, we wouldn't have found ourselves in this mess. And that's it. These judges now, it now depends on them to do the right thing for posterity's sake, something that when they look back at, they will be proud that they were able to give Nigeria and Nigerians justice at this particular point in time. Also, another report have come out from Tentacle where they said that Tinubu certificate saga is scaring investors. And see the way they reported it here. Tinubu certificate brouhaha scares investors. And this is actually the truth, because many people will be discouraged from coming to invest in Nigeria with this kind of case that is coming from the nation, and it is concerning the number one person of Nigeria. Reacting to this here on X, this person here said Tinubu should be disqualified before the little honor remaining for us as a nation is thrown into the ocean. Nobody will want to have anything to do with drug lord and certificate forger except he or she is into it. Hashtag Tinubu must go. And that's it. This person here also reacted and said, Tentacle also reports that CSU has disowned third-party vendor. APC government have intentionally destroyed the image of Nigeria. What did they care about? It will keep getting worse. The only way to redeem the image of Nigeria is to sack this man for a new Nigeria to emerge. Another person here reacted and said, I pray God opens the eyes of our leaders to see who this man truly is, because honestly, he has absolutely nothing to offer Nigerians. This person here said, no sane investor will want to invest in an unstable market where there is no rule of law, documents are forged. Tinubu thought governance is same as drug dealing. And that's it. There's no sane investor that will just want to come and invest their money in a place where they are not guaranteed of safety, where even the president can forge his certificate. They will not want to take that kind of risk. And that's what we are seeing now. And like we keep saying, this will not just only affect how people perceive Nigeria and Nigerians, but it's also going to affect our economy. If we don't have these investors, if people cannot come to do business in Nigeria, how are we going to grow? How are we going to expand as a nation? Another person here reacted and said, as expected, who would want to invest their hard-earned money in a country as unfortunate as this? What does Nigerians expect before? Maybe they should jump into Nigeria when the whole world is afraid of being given forged documents when reaching contracts. And this is it. The whole world is afraid of being given forged documents when they are going into agreement. No one will be happy that at the end of the day, after investing your money, the contract you signed, you discover that the certificate was actually forged. That's what the people are scared of. Because if the number one citizen of a country can forge his documents, what will other people in that nation do? That's the mindset they are having concerning Nigeria and Nigerians. Another person here reacted and said, whole truth. How do you invest your $1 billion in an economy led by a man without a first school certificate, secondary school certificate, and on top of this, the university certificate he submitted was declared fake by the purported issuing authority? Not possible in 2023. And that's it. It's not possible. This is actually the internet age and everybody already know about this, so it's impossible for them to come and invest their money because they will be scared and they'll be thinking of their own security. Also reacting on this person here said Nigeria is deteriorating faster than light travels. Another person here reacted and said documented agreement means nothing to a forger. Nigerian generated documents will end up being just a tissue paper to the international community. And this is actually going to be the truth at the end of the day. If nothing is done, if the Supreme Court fails to give Nigerians justice in this case, at the end of the day, the international community will continue to scrutinize us. They'll continue to put it to our face that Nigerians are forgers when it is not true about the whole population, when it is actually the person that INEC put into power that is spoiling our image in the outside world. Another person here reacted and said, Tinubu is the definition of closed door. The same man who claims to be building the Nigerian economy is the same that is destroying it. Why won't his certificate falsification scare investors away who in their eyes want to do business with a criminal? And that's it. It is going to scare them away because everyone will want to be careful to not invest their money somewhere that at the end of the day they will regret it. And this is actually not sending the right message to the outside world. It is not just for our economy, but for Nigerians too. We've seen how many Nigerians are already meeting rejection for the different things they are applying for scholarships, for admission, for jobs. They're already being rejected and they are giving them double scrutiny for the documents they are submitting. And this is never this way before now. But this is already closing doors for Nigerians. And that's why Nigerians are not keeping quiet. That's why they are calling on the Supreme Court to ensure that they do the right thing. Another person here said, what a mess. This bad forgery must not destroy Nigeria. He must go. And that's it. At this point in time, the nation is actually in a state where we are depending and looking on the judiciary to ensure that they do the right thing. We don't want the same judgment that they did during the Presidential Election Petition Tribunal. We want it that when they give their judgments, even the outside world will know that indeed the judiciary this time around gave the people justice. Thank you so much guys for watching this video. Please do well to share your thoughts about the video in the comment section. Please do well to like this video and please do well to subscribe to our channel so you get notifications whenever we post new updates.